Friends, family, community, Washington and the world, stay tuned. This is truthversusnews.inc, and this is the show you're going to want to see, you want to share with all your friends, because we're going to say and tell you how we're going to change the entire planet, solve all of the planet's problems in this show right here, so don't miss it.
We can do it. Yes, we can. We can change things throughout the land. But we all must lend a hand. We can do it. Oh, yes, we can. Oh, your neighbor over there, a bit bewildered, but he cares. He just doesn't know what to do. Join together and then they'll be two. There are others all around, scattered throughout the town. Reach out and you will see your numbers swell to 3. We can do it. Yes, we can. We can change things throughout the land, but we all must lend a hand. We can do it. Oh, yes, we can. Now together you form a core, and you're eager to find some more. You start knocking on other doors, and before long you're up to 4. As your numbers begin to grow, you're expanding what you know. You're a movement when you reach 5. And now watched by the FBI. We can do it. Yes, we can. We can change things throughout the land, but we all must lend a hand. We can do it. Oh, yes, we can.
Yes, you may ask, what can you do? Well, there's lots that we can do. Folks, this is Truth versus News. We're exposing the problems with the mainstream media that you see behind me. All those different channels have got all kinds of things to deceive you. We're here to bring you the truth, and Kevin has got this long, strong show planned, so I guess I better let him take over. Go ahead.
All right, we made some bold statements today, and I really mean it. We're going to talk about how we can change the entire planet. A golden age of humankind is upon us, and I'll tell you exactly how. We've got a 2-minute NASA video. Yes, that's NASA, N-A-S-A video. It's going to blow you away. A 12-minute, 60 minutes video that's going to blow you away. Some other great stuff. Cory is here. He's going to help us with funny, and we're going to make a really big difference. Now, I want everyone out there to take a breath. Yeah, those of us that can still breathe. Take a breath. And I want you to, there's a set of books called A Course in Miracles that I love a lot. And the Course in Miracles teaches about miracles. And it says it's not our job to make a miracle happen. Our only job is to be willing for there to be a miracle. So I would like for all of you out there to be willing for there to be a miracle so deep and so amazing that it truly transforms this entire planet. And it all boils down to one thing. Look at the problems in the world that we have today. People want to go to war. What are they going to war over? Energy. People want to be able to pollute our Gulf of Mexico and build giant poisonous nuclear power plants that explode and cause all kinds of problems. What is it that we need that for? Energy. What is it that keeps us even enslaved to the money junkies? Energy. I'm going to start you off with a video from NASA that's going to blow you. This is 2 minutes. What's happened is okay, imagine this. Imagine that there was a box outside your home that literally provided you with all the energy that you wanted. And energy became the currency of the day. There are actually some alternative currencies that are talking about using energy as the benchmark as opposed to time-based currencies or the currency we have today, which is basically toilet paper called a Federal Reserve note. But if energy were the currency and everyone had an unlimited supply, what you could do is we would no longer need the oil dictators. We would no longer need tankers. We would no longer need big oil platforms. We would no longer need nuclear energy. We would be able to grow our own food. We would be able to power our own car. We would be able to take back the legacy of riches and wealth that has been stolen from us by the oligarchy, bankster, gangster, murderer, media mafia, and survive. And watch this. Because there's a new energy technology, there are several of them, but there's one that's making it so far, a man named Andrea Rossi, making it so far that NASA has had to produce a 2-minute video to say that's really real. Check this out. You on the computer, Don?
I sure am.
Let's
right
do
now.
it.
Okay.
Oh, I got to push the play button properly. There we go. NASA, see that?
Mm-hmm.
While the world is drastically dependent on fossil fuel, researchers at NASA Langley Research Center are working on another way of producing energy-efficient nuclear power.
This other form of nuclear power releases energy by adding neutrons. Eventually they gain sufficient number of neutrons that they spontaneously decay into something of the same mass but a different element.
The different element is cleaner than traditional nuclear fuels and can be produced by raw materials such as nickel, carbon, and hydrogen.
It has the demonstrated ability to produce excess amounts of energy cleanly, without hazardous ionizing radiation, without producing nasty waste.
This clean form of energy is also powerful, able to support everything from transportation systems to infrastructure.
The easiest implementation of this would be for the home. You would have a unit that would replace your water heater, and you would have some sort of cycle to derive electrical energy from that, and then it would dump its waste heat into the water or air handling system for the building. So it would be a dual use thing. It would be sitting there producing heat, and then you derive electricity from it to run your electronics, power the house, power the building, power the light industry. And then the waste heat would be used for environmental control and warm water.
NASA's method for enhancement of surface plasma polaritons to initiate and sustain LENR in metal hydride systems. A clean nuclear energy for your power-operated technology.
Ooh, how interesting. What does that sound like, folks? Doesn't that sound like what was that crazy thing they talked about? Cold fusion. Wow, they really poo-pooed that one, and that was supposedly not real, was it? The key, oh, they can close that. All right, close that door for us. Thank you. The key to this is imagination. The key to this is being thrilled that we're being lied to. That's the tough part. It's tough to believe. You will hear people say, oh, if that were true, someone would be inventing it and someone would be making a whole lot of money on it. But you don't realize the extent and power that the entrenched system has to try and stop it. We'll talk about the 4 things, the 4 forces that are against it. But let's go back and let's look at, remember Pons and Fleischmann all those years ago, cold fusion was real. This isn't the only one of these energy technologies. I'll talk about a few of the others. This is just one that is so obviously real because NASA just made it. You just saw the 2-minute NASA video. And now we're going to watch a 12-minute, what's this, wackadoodle out there someplace? What's this going to be? Where's Kevin going to find this? How about 60 minutes? Let's do it. 60 minutes is a very good place to start. When you read, you begin with ABC.
For a moment that all of our energy problems could be solved. It was the announcement of cold fusion, nuclear energy like that which powers the sun, but at room temperature on a tabletop. It promised to be cheap, limitless, and clean. Cold fusion would end our dependence on the Middle East and stop those greenhouse gases blamed for global warming. It would change everything. But then, just as quickly as it was announced, it was discredited so thoroughly that cold fusion became a catchphrase for junk science. Well, a funny thing happened on the way to oblivion. For many scientists today, cold fusion is hot again.
We can wield the power of nuclear physics on a tabletop. The potential is unlimited. That is the most powerful energy source known to man.
Michael McCoubrey says he has seen that energy more than 50 times in cold fusion experiments he's doing at SRI International, a respected California lab that does extensive work for the government. McCoubrey is an electrochemist who imagines in 20 years the creation of a clean nuclear battery.
For example, the laptop would come pre-charged with all of the energy that you would ever intend to use. You're not decoupled from your charger and the wall socket.
Automobiles?
Same. Potential is for an energy source that would run your car for 3-4 years, for example. You take it in for servicing every 4 years and they'd give you a new power supply.
Power stations?
You can imagine a one-for-one plug-in replacement for nuclear fuel rods. And the difference only would be that at the end of the lifetime of that fuel rod, you didn't have radioactive waste that needed to be disposed of.
McCoubrey showed us just how simple the experiment looks. There are only 3 main ingredients. First, palladium, a metal in the platinum family. Second, a kind of hydrogen called deuterium, which is found in seawater.
Deuterium is essentially unlimited. There is 10 times as much energy in a gallon of seawater from the deuterium contained within it than there is in a gallon of gasoline.
The palladium is placed in water containing deuterium, and the third ingredient is an electric current. So the experiment's running inside this box.
That's correct.
Can we open it up?
We can look inside. There's very little to see.
The experiment is wrapped in insulation and instruments. They're looking for what they call excess heat. In other words, is more energy coming out than the electric current puts in. No one knows exactly how excess heat would be generated in the experiment, but McCoubrey shows us what he thinks is happening.
This is an artist's rendition of deuterium atoms.
At the atomic level, palladium looks like a lattice, and the electricity drives the deuterium to the palladium.
They sit on the surface and they pop inside the lattice.
McCoubrey believes there is a nuclear reaction, possibly a fusion process like what happens in the sun, but occurring inside the metal at a slower rate and without dangerous radiation.
What we're trying to do is...
Scientists today like to call it a nuclear effect rather than cold fusion. At least 20 labs working independently have published reports of excess heat. Heat up to 25 times greater than the electricity going in.
This little piece of palladium metal has about 1/3 as much energy as the battery in your automobile. So very small volumes, very small masses can produce large amounts of energy.
McCoubrey has been working on this since that first discredited claim of cold fusion made headlines 20 years ago.
We devised an experiment.
Martin Fleischmann and Stanley Pons amazed the world in 1989 with their cold fusion news conference at the University of Utah. Fleischmann, in particular, was one of the world's leading electrochemists, and the announcement of room temperature fusion set the world on fire.
We have found conditions where fusion takes place.
Immediately, prestigious labs at MIT and Caltech rushed to reproduce the experiment, but they didn't get the same results as Fleischmann and Pons.
We have no evidence in our laboratory with any of our samples for fusion.
The careers of Fleischmann and Pons were destroyed quick as a nuclear flash.
We worked for 5 years on this.
Names once linked to a Nobel Prize were forgotten by nearly everyone, and most of the scientific world today is happy to leave it that way.
I'm still waiting for the water heaters. I'm still waiting for the thing that will produce heat on demand.
Oh, you
Richard
are you?
Garwin is one of the most
Well, let's give it to
respected
you.
physicists in the world, and has been since the 1950s, when he helped design the most successful fusion experiment of all time. The hydrogen bomb, sort of the ultimate in hot fusion.
Yes, it was unfortunately a very successful experiment.
This experiment...
Garwin was a critic of Martin Fleischmann back in 1989, and he has seen the reports on the research that has been done since. You think McCoubrey is mistaken?
Yes.
After all the work that he's done?
Yes, I think so. Why? I think probably he measures the input power wrong.
It's one of the most common criticisms of cold fusion experiments, that the amount of electricity going in and the heat coming out are simply mismeasured.
It's possible. It is possible that I have been mismeasuring energy for 20 years.
20 years.
But
Possible.
I think it extremely unlikely. A very large number of people
Don't you love
have been
it?
making these measurements, and measurement of
Here's a scientist.
current, voltage, temperature, resistance. They're some of the simplest measurements that a physicist or physical scientist will measure.
But there's another...
That's how a scientist behaves, right? It's possible that the sun won't shine tomorrow. It's possible, but highly unlikely. No, it's possible that the world will blow up in 5 seconds, but highly unlikely because he's a scientist, right?
Boom! Problem that critics point out. The experiments produce excess heat at best 70% of the time. It can take days or weeks for the excess heat to show up, and it's never the same amount of energy twice.
I require that you be able to make one of these things, replicate it, put it here, it heats up the cup of tea.
He requires what? That they be able to make one of those things and replicate it? Ooh, what's the next video that we're going to see, folks?
I'll drink the tea, then you make me another cup of tea, and I'll drink that too. That's not it.
For you to be a believer, it has to work 100% of the time.
Pretty much.
Okay.
Our critics often complain that we can't boil water to make tea. We could have, in fact, boiled 64 gallons of water and made 1,000 cups of tea had we chosen to do so.
No one's sure why the experiments can't be consistently reproduced, but Cory thinks it has something to do with how the palladium is prepared. He's working with this Italian government lab called Enea, where some of the most reliable palladium is made. With so many open questions, we wanted to find out whether cold fusion is more than a tempest in a teapot. So we asked another distinguished physicist to have a look at the research. Rob Duncan is Vice Chancellor of Research at the University of Missouri and an expert in measuring energy. When we first called you and said we'd like you to look into cold fusion for 60 minutes, what did you think when you hung up the phone?
I think my first reaction was something like, well, hasn't that been debunked?
Hasn't that been debunked?
We asked Duncan to go with us to Israel, where a lab called Energetics Technologies has reported some of the biggest energy gains yet.
We are delivering power into the cell.
When I got there, I just kept asking about, okay, how do you know this? How do you know that?
How do you get 30%? I mean,
Duncan spent 2 days examining cold fusion experiments.
I'm just skeptical because I'm always skeptical.
And investigating whether the measurements were accurate.
Do you measure that aluminum temperature directly or just assume it's equal to...
And when you walked out of the Israeli lab, you thought what?
I thought, wow, they've done something very interesting here.
He crunched the numbers himself and searched for an explanation other than a nuclear effect.
I found that the work done was carefully done and that the excess heat, as I see it now, is quite real.
Are you surprised to hear yourself saying this?
Very much. I never thought I'd say that.
And we found that the Pentagon is saying it too. The Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, known as DARPA, did its own analysis, and we obtained this internal memo that concludes there is, quote, no doubt that anomalous excess heat is produced in these experiments. Do you feel vindicated after all these years?
I don't have any real need for vindication. I know what I've seen.
That was a pretty big smile on your face, though.
It's good. It's not bad. Certainly it's good.
Now the Pentagon is funding more experiments at the Naval Research Lab in Washington, D.C., and at McCoubrey's lab in California. We wondered what Richard Garwin would think of the Defense Department's appraisal. The experiments leave no doubt that anomalous excess heat is produced.
Well, that's a statement.
You just don't buy that.
Well, I am living proof that there's doubt. They can say that excess heat is being produced, but they can't say there's no doubt.
Yeah, but would you go look at it and see?
But I doubt.
Yeah. If you ask me, is this going to have any impact on our energy policy? It's impossible to say because we don't fundamentally understand the process yet. But to say that we don't fundamentally understand the process and that's why we're not going to study it is like saying I'm too sick to go to the doctor.
You know, I wonder how you feel about going public endorsing this phenomenon on 60 Minutes when maybe 90%, I'm guessing, of your colleagues think that it's crackpot science.
I certainly was among those 90% before I looked at the data. And I can see where they'll be very concerned when they see this piece. All I have to say is read the published results, talk to the scientists, never let anybody else do your thinking for you.
There was one more scientist we wanted to find, a man who left America in disgrace and retired with his wife to the English countryside. Martin Fleischmann, the man who announced cold fusion to the world, is hindered now by years, diabetes, Parkinson's disease, and maybe a little bitterness. At home, he pulled out an improved version of his experiment, something that he was working on when he was hounded out of science.
When you hold that in your hand and you think back on what's happened these last 20 years, what do you think?
A wasted opportunity.
Wasted? Because it was discredited at the time.
He told us he has two regrets: calling the nuclear effect fusion, a name coined by a competitor,
If you loaded the cell with heavy water.
and having that news conference, something he says the University of Utah wanted.
Now that you know that your experiments have been replicated and improved upon in labs all around the world, I wonder, do you see a day when homes will be powered by these cells, when cars will be powered by these cells?
I think so. It won't take very long to implement this.
Nope.
You make me feel that I should take a part in this.
I'm getting you interested again?
Yes.
The potential is exciting.
Bless his
The
heart.
potential is exciting, yes.
He's a hero. That man is a hero. Okay, the first thing that skeptics think is, my goodness, how could they keep the wraps on this? How could they keep the wraps on something so potentially world-changing? And put up the wanttoknow.info graphic, would you? If you want to know more about this, there is a website called wanttoknow.info that is nothing but sourced and linked and absolute backup and proof. It's Fred Burke's amazing site, and I'm on it right now. And on the energy page, there's new energy sources and inventions. And he lists just a few of the most successful ones, and all the links where you can find them. There's radiant energy, there's magnifying transmitters, there's permanent magnets, permanent magnet-powered motors, super efficient electrolysis, which is a really fun one. That's the one where you've seen some of the videos where people have run their cars by hitting the resonant frequency of the water with electricity at the right resonant frequency, breaks it down into hydrogen and Brown's gas. I'll show you a video on that a little bit more. But I'd like to talk to you about the four invisible forces, the ones that drove poor Stanley Fleischmann out of his career and have stopped us. That was 1989. We are in 2012. So you're talking 23 years. I just did that math in my head. 23 years that instead of spending money on wars, instead of spending money on handing more and more power to the money junkies and the oligarchies and the drug lords and the weapons manufacturers, if we'd been spending 1,000th of that money in research and development on this, it would already be a reality. But the forces that are at play, the first one is the motivations are greed. The wealthiest families and their central banking institutions are the first four. Their motivations are greed and the need to control almost everything except themselves. Their plans to eventually control all the resources of the world, and I mean, really, truly, there are these people. They're pathological sociopaths. They want to control everything, but they can't because we're going to take the power away from them one little piece at a time. I'm going to show you. This doesn't have to be done on some huge scale. It's being done all over the place because the giant interests' ability to stop these energy technologies is like playing whack-a-mole, because people keep inventing them all over the place, and they've assassinated people, they've paid off people, and that's one of the forces. The second force is national governments and their idea of national security. They have an issue about national security. The third force that's against this is deluded investors and con men. And it's also one of the ways that the institutional oligarchs and the money junkies have stopped this, is they've flooded the web with crackpot people that try and sell you the machine and then it doesn't work, and then those people tell all their friends. It's unfortunately an extraordinarily effective strategy. Somebody says, they show you a video of it working, then they send you the plans that are essentially wrong in a fundamental way, and then all of a sudden that becomes the fourth force operating to postpone the public availability of new energy technology is all the rest of us. It may be easy to see how narrow and selfish the motivations of other forces are, but actually these motivations are still very much alive in each of us as well. Like the wealthiest families, don't we each secretly harbor illusions of false superiority and want to control others instead of ourselves? Also, wouldn't you sell out if the price were high enough? Or like governments, don't we each want to ensure our own survival? Or like the deluded inventor, don't we trade a comfortable illusion once in a while for an uncomfortable fact? Or don't we all still fear the unknown, even if it promises a great reward? That's like Fred Burks on wanttoknow.info. That's like him to bring it around to the real depth, to the Gandhi-esque depth that says, if we want to see some change in the world, we have to be the change that we want to see in the world. I'm a single dad. My kids here is going to have a little fun with you later we like to have some funny, so I promise you the funny. And I'm a single dad, and be hard-pressed if I were an inventor that had a patent, and the patents are listed on this and all that kind of stuff. If I were an inventor that had the patent on something like this, and somebody offered me $1 billion and said, you take the $1 billion or I'll kill you, I honestly don't know what I would do. But the whack-a-mole isn't effective. That guy in the video, the old 60 Minutes, that's quite an old program, said things like, he imagines it'll happen in 20 years. And he said, I'm still waiting to see whether or not that shows up. And, well, that data could be wrong, and I need to see it be consistent and produce that power. Well, guess what? There's a guy who's made it consistent. He's rolling them off the assembly line, and he's the reason that NASA video was produced. Let's get back to the computer. This is Andrea Rossi and the ECAT. This is a 5-minute video. Stay tuned.
And we will open the box of the reactor to check anything that is inside. You will see that inside there is only a very small reactor, and for all the rest there are wings to exchange heat with the water. This is the control panel, and these are the temperatures which are going on inside the reactor. The reactor is that one, which is inside that big silver box. The big silver box is a heat exchanger. When it will produce steam, the steam will go in that heat exchanger. And this heat exchanger will exchange the heat between the steam, which is produced by the reactor, and the water, which comes from the grid. From the delta T and the flow of the water, we will calculate the energy that we will produce.
I became surprised and very interesting immediately. And I've never heard about that until this winter. And then I became very curious. So to some extent it is a revolution. Some are skeptical, some are positive. I belong to them. So that's nice. So I'm here as an observer and how to see how it works in practical details. Some training, some smaller modification perhaps, but it's almost a ready product.
What happened?
Me, myself, I had some question marks on how the temperature was measured on the secondary circuit. And, but overall, you know, when you do this kind of test, you observe lots of things. We had a very long test today. After a couple of hours, when we had input electrical energy, we cut away the input energy, and the machine ran for 3.5, almost 4 hours in self-sustained mode with no energy input. And still after 3 hours and a half, you could put your hand on the ECAT, and you know, it was 85 centigrades on the top, between 60 and 85 centigrades on the top, and you feel the water boiling inside after 3 hours. And also made another measurement, seeing how much water came out of the primary circuit to have a rough calculus of the energy in that way. And it all sums up to you know, an energy production, a power of average 2, 3, or 4, even maybe 5 kilowatts after 3 hours with no electrical power input, and that's impressive. I have to say that.
The results today have been good, and the test has been good, even if I have seen many things to be corrected under an engineering point of view. I have seen that some gasket did not work properly, and some correction has to be made to be perfect, and but I am pretty satisfied because it has been a long but very useful day. We made a calorimetric measure which has been very robust, and the simplicity of the circuit made very easy to make very easy calculations. So I am pretty satisfied.
Well, that was fairly important because this model of the ECAT is much larger and much heavier than the previous ones that we've seen in the test so far. And you know, having a big box, very heavy one, it's easy to have ideas that inside you can hide whatever kind of stuff, an energy source or something that magazines that collects energy and keeps it in their heat. And opening was important.
So I have been following the ECAT story for a while now. This is obviously my what I think is the most important thing on the planet, and continue to imagine what this means. Really, truly imagine what this means. We would make sure that the oil dictators, you know, could go back to building sandcastles in the sandy places they live. Right? Everyone wants to go to war with Iran. I'll show a neat little video about that in a minute. Everyone wants to go to war with Iran. That's really all about money and resources. And can you imagine if you have an unlimited and essentially democratized or distributed energy production, then you can desalinate all the water you want, bloom the deserts, feed all the people you want, and those have text on them, Don. Those are words that people are reading that other than the words I'm saying, right? I appreciate that. Okay, yeah. Don he's a TV show guy, and so he wants all these cool little things going on behind me. There it is, yeah. Yes, cool stuff going on behind me, but I am talking about stuff. So anyway, the thing is, I've been following the Andrea Rossi story for a while, and what's happened is he said he was going to produce a plant in the United States. He announced this. So the Nuclear Regulatory Commission steps in and says, oh my gosh, if that's a nuclear process, we have control over that. And in case you don't know, the Nuclear Regulatory Agency is what's called a captured agency. It is owned and operated in a revolving door situation where, you know, the people come from industry and into it, and from it and into industry. It's a captured regulatory agency, which means that its only purpose is to stop Andrea Rossi. Its only purpose is to promote the nuclear power industry, which is the most dangerous and insane industry on Earth. We're going to get into that a little bit. I promised you funny, and so I'm going to turn this over to my kid, who's going to play a little bit with Jon Stewart. Here, I'm going to step in here, okay? And a fun Jon Stewart that we got going, okay? I'll push play and then full screen? Mm-hmm. Let you control it? Okay. This is, we love Jon Stewart. We watch it all the time. And he's going to make comments too.
One thing. Your children's education. Nothing is more important. You want them to learn enough to do well in the world, but not so much that they can win arguments with you. But what are they really learning in school? Al Madrigal followed this eye-opening story.
Across the country, public education is failing. But in Arizona, lawmakers have found the solution to the biggest problem facing their schools.
Arizona's Governor Jan Brewer just approved a bill banning ethnic studies classes in public schools.
And using this new law, the Tucson School Board banned the K-12 Mexican-American Studies program. School Board member Michael Hicks.
My concern was a lot of the radical ideas that they were teaching in these classes, telling these kids that this is their land, the whites took it over, and the only way to get out from beneath the gringo, which is the white man, is by bloodshed.
When you sat in on these classes, what types
I chose not to go to any of their classes.
Sorry.
You can pause it.
Why even go? Why even go? I base my thoughts on hearsay from others, so I based it on...
Wait, you haven't gone to one of these classes and you're judging these people? I'd like to know who these other people are. Really, really bad.
With powerful evidence like hearsay, the Tucson School Board had little choice but to end the Mexican-American Studies program, protecting kids from dangerous teachers like Curtis Acosta.
Our students are much more likely to graduate and go to college. Their test scores have improved. And most of all, they're excited about education so they can pursue it in their future lives.
And you do that by teaching them to hate white people.
We don't teach them to hate white people. What we're trying to do is provide a more complex version of what has happened in our past so that our students are engaged and they can ask themselves critical questions and build their own understanding.
Critical thinking, more like critical brainwashing, and it gets worse.
They would, every week, go out and buy burritos and feed these kids.
What?
Yeah. What that does is it builds a more of a bond between the teacher and the students.
Sure, I'm loyal to this guy because he bought me burritos.
Right.
What? Okay. I'm definitely loyal to my father, and he buys me burritos all the time. So is it wrong? But I just what?
You have a vested interest in education, right? Mm-hmm. And how well they're taught. That's why I had to pull you out and start homeschooling. Mm-hmm. Push play.
You slip your burritos to kids, don't you?
Why would giving food to our youth be something that frowned upon?
When the program goes away, the burritos go away. That's why these kids are upset. No mas burritos.
It's pretty offensive.
And now that they've eradicated Mexican-American studies from the schools, they can focus on other ethnicities.
Honestly, this law won't be applied to any other of our courses. It was strictly written for one course, which is the Mexican-American Studies program. And nobody has complained about any of the Pan-Asian or any of the other courses that are being taught.
What about the African-American Studies program?
The African-American Studies program is still there. It's not teaching the resentment of a race or class of people.
I'm a black kid.
You better pin him to the wall. I mean, that is just silly. I mean, we've done a lot of things to black people. And if they're getting Mexicans, then why not get black people then? It's just... So,
they wrote the law specifically specifically about brown people south of the border. And this is our public schools. Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Try to teach me about slavery without me feeling resentment towards white people.
How am I going to teach you about slavery? Slavery was...
How did I end up here?
Slavery was I got to figure out. Okay. The white man did bring over the Africans.
And what kind of jobs did we do?
The jobs that you guys did was basically slavery jobs.
So after we were freed, we got to vote?
Yes. You didn't get to vote until later.
And we were equal?
Almost equal.
what, we were like sort of a half or 3/5?
My personal perception of it, I would say you're probably a quarter.
The more he taught me about black history, the more I realized Arizona has figured out the right way to teach it.
We now have a black man as a president. You know, Rosa Clark did not take on a gun and go onto a bus and hold up everybody.
Sadly, the peaceful lessons of Rosa Clark are lost on the radical reactionaries teaching Mexican American studies.
The guy's an idiot.
This is a great country. In some countries, I might be actually locked up for teaching the way I have, and well, in this country, I'm just banned from doing it.
I'm very close to getting locked up.
Until then, Arizona's children can count on professional educators like Michael Hicks to protect them.
Do you think it'll be okay for the school district to have a Mexican American Studies program when the district is 100% Latino?
No.
But at that point, there'll be no white people left.
Well, if there's no more white people in the world, then okay, then you can do what you want.
Oh, don't worry, Mr. Hicks. We will. We will.
How magical. We'll be right back.
How about that?
What? Okay, I just don't get this guy. He is crazy, and so are all the people with him.
Well, the problem about his being crazy, Cory, is that he is in a position of power. He got laws passed that that teacher that you love so much. The reason Cory wanted to show this was it meant so much to him. And that teacher that you saw that was so passionate and so wonderful, the sort of people like your science teacher, we have a homeschool science teacher.
Gives you
terrific.
burritos.
What? Yeah, and feeds his kid burritos. That kind of teacher is up against idiots like that man who get political power and literally change the way people are taught in order to retain their power over them, which is very similar to what we're talking about here. We're talking about a revolutionary concept that will literally completely hand a world over to you that is transformed. Literally, food. Tonight we're going to go see the lady in Jenny Pell here in Seattle is speaking at the Shoreline Chamber, and she's going to be talking about the food forest they're creating. They're creating a food forest that anybody can go into, and the largest one in the world that anyone can go in and pick fruit or vegetables or whatever they want. You're putting text up behind me again, Don. Yeah, that's stuff that says Columbia University right there. And see, that has nothing to do with what I'm talking about. Okay. And I have a request that you don't put text up behind me. Bless your heart.
Talking about students. So.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, that's very interesting. Okay.
Very influential.
Yeah, but see, then I read it and
okay. So basically, at this food forest, I can eat anything I want.
Well, that's the idea. I mean, what kind of a paradise? We'll talk another show about the Venus Project and some of that other neat stuff. But now it's time to get to why it is really important that we do this. There is no more time. There is no more time for us not to be contacting our representatives, not to be making a difference, because, in fact, things have gotten to this place. You ready for the computer? This is Tom Hartman. This is 5 minutes. This is what's going on in the world, folks.
Moving on to the continuing nuclear crisis in Japan, a radioactive wave is headed toward the United States. Scientists with the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution are tracking debris from last year's Japanese earthquake and tsunami as it makes its way across the Pacific Ocean. That debris, which carries with it extremely high levels of radiation, is currently 186 miles off the coast of Japan and could start lashing the coast of the United States within the year, depending on the currents. Scientists are immediately concerned about marine life being hit with radiation levels millions of times above normal. But by next year, it'll be in our marine food supply, our rain, and our coastal waters. So more than a year after the Fukushima nuclear crisis began, the world is still suffering its effects, with more to come. But despite all that, the Japanese government is reportedly preparing to restart one of its nuclear reactors. This week, the Japanese Prime Minister will meet with cabinet officials to discuss turning on a nuclear reactor in western Japan that's been shut down since the Fukushima crisis began more than a year ago. So why hasn't the world learned the lessons of nuclear power yet, even as radioactive waste is heading toward the U.S. West Coast? Kevin Camps joins me now. He's the radioactive waste watchdog at beyondnuclear.org. Kevin, welcome back.
Thank you, Tom.
So what is going on here with the Japanese saying, I thought, last time we talked, in fact, I thought that the consensus in Japan was no nukes.
Well, there's strong citizen pressure to keep now 53 of 54 reactors in Japan shut down. There's only one operating commercial reactor in Japan. It's going to shut down in early May. Japan will be a nuclear-free zone, and it's because of the anti-nuclear movement of Japan, the common citizens of Japan who, because of Fukushima Daiichi, don't want those risks in their lives anymore. And what the government and the industry are worried about is if they enter the summer with no reactors online and people's lights are still on, the electricity supply is stable, the air conditioners are working, people are going to start to ask, why do we have these risks in our midst? So the federal government, as you said, is sending their Minister of Economy, Trade and Industry to Fukui Prefecture in Western Japan to try to convince the governor there who wants
need a nuke.
Safety upgrades in place before the restart. That's kind of a reasonable request to just get out of the way. And the feds are hinting they may just override him at this point.
Whoa. Can these reactors be made safe?
No, I mean, if you lose electricity from the grid, if you lose the emergency diesels, as happened at Fukushima Daiichi, be it an earthquake and tsunami, be it some other natural disaster, Japan just in recent days was hit by another major storm. So there are many ways you can lose electricity to the safety systems, to the cooling systems. Right. And of course you've got—
It could be a tornado in the Midwest.
Floods in Nebraska last summer, which were much more serious than they ever let on at the time.
This wave of radioactive waste, or what has become now this, I don't know the word, beachhead or whatever, this just plume, I guess is a pretty good word, that is coming off Japan and heading towards us. What is it? What does it mean?
Well, almost to the day a year ago, Tokyo Electric intentionally released 11,500 tons or 3 million gallons of radioactive water into the ocean on purpose. The federal government of Japan gave them permission. There's recent news media reports that it was under pressure from the United States government, and the excuse at the time— Why? The excuse at the time was that Tokyo Electric was out of storage space for radioactive water at the plant, and they had a lot more coming. They were trying to keep the reactors as cool as possible because of the meltdowns. They were clearing away less contaminated water to make room for much more contaminated water to come. That's the decision they made. And that plume, as you said, it's taken a year, but it's now reached Hawaii. Another year from now, it'll probably reach the west coast of the United States. And yes, those are our fishing waters, but the fish happen to move around. There are species of tuna that spend part of their life cycle on the Japanese northeast coast, and they have migrated to the United States already. So where is the food monitoring program? There is no post-Fukushima food monitoring program in place. It was quickly dismantled. We're back to pre-Fukushima radiation monitoring, which could miss a lot.
Get to Amazon.com right now and buy a Geiger counter? Is that our food monitoring program? You're on your own, Charlie?
In Japan, I just met a woman in New York City who's now an anti-nuclear activist, and her sisters, her nieces and nephews are monitoring their own food, monitoring the food at the elementary school, and bringing in Fukushima refugees. So the people of Japan have been thrown onto their own resources to protect themselves.
And the people of the United States, apparently?
Very much so. We see that up and down the West Coast, people getting radiation monitors, even to the point of checking their own food supply.
Yeah, I actually bought, in fact, I brought it in one of the times you were here on the show. You visited the Fukushima plant back in 2010. We just have 30 seconds left. Thoughts on that?
Well, it's a dead zone where I went to, and the wonderful people I met are scattered to the wind across Japan and other countries. I also visited Fukui. I went to a 1,200-year-old Buddhist temple, and they have been a strong leader in the resistance to those reactors that now are slated for restart.
That's great. Kevin, thanks so much for being with us tonight. Thank you. It's always great to see you.
Go ahead.
These people in charge are definitely crazy. I mean, after everything that's happened, after all their food supply getting ruined, all their water supply getting ruined,
You're ranting. I love it. My kid is a ranter too. That's great. I know exactly how you feel. Now let's remember, buddy. Our job is not to make a miracle happen. Our job is to be willing for there to be a miracle, to be open to there being one. I'm going to have a show, so stay tuned to youtube.com/activistangel. I'm going to have a show. I've been researching this a lot. I'm going to have a show that talks about radiation, talks about what we can do about it, talks about how we can prepare ourselves. I might have a friend of mine on who's a nuclear engineer and chat about this now that we're getting the technical and directing issues worked out, Dawn, so that the show is smoother. I can bring some people on. But there are people that are trying to make a difference in this world. There are people that are trying to stop us from heading off to this horrible, illegal, and immoral war that is really about money and resources and power. It's about central banking. I'd like to show a 2-minute, here's a 2-minute thing from We Love You, Iran and Israel. Check this one out. You ready, Don?
Hi, I'm Ronnie. I'm 41 years old. I'm a father. I'm a graphic designer. I'm a teacher. I'm a citizen of Israel, and I need your help. Lately in the news you can hear about a war coming, a big one. Governments are talking about destruction, about self-defense, like this war is not about us. 3 days ago I posted a poster on Facebook. The message was simple: Iranian, we will never bomb your country. We love you. Attached to the poster, I wrote a few words. To the Iranian people, to all father, mother, children, brothers and sisters. For there to be a war between us, first, we must be afraid one of each other. We must hate. I'm not afraid of you. I don't hate you. I don't even know you. No Iranian ever did me no harm. I never even meet an Iranian. Just one in Paris in a museum. Nice dude. I see sometime here on the TV an Iranian. He's talking about war. I sure it does not represent all of the people of Iran. If you see someone on your TV talking about bombing you, be sure it does not represent all of the people of Israel. So within 24 hours, people start sharing the poster on their Facebook. Within 48 hours, the Iranian people start responding to the posters and share back their love to us. Hundreds of messages arriving from Iran telling the Israeli people, we love you back. The day after we were on TV, on newspaper, proving that the message was traveling fast. Okay, now we want to make sure that the message reach everybody, not only in the Facebook community, but everywhere. This is a message by the people to the people. So please donate and help us spread this message. Thank you.
That's the kind of love and peace that are going on the planet. What?
We need everyone to be like that and just be, we love you. The people who want to go at war with you are not all of us. There are some of us truly, truly do love you. Please understand that.
We really do. How to get through to them, how to get past the leaders and bypass them. So in the couple minutes that I've got left, I got two choices. I've already run the Thrive. You should see Thrive. Go to thrivemovement.com and watch the movie Thrive. It's done by the scion of the Procter & Gamble family, Foster Gamble, and spent millions of dollars. But I'd like to play, because the ECAT, the cold fusion, isn't the only thing that's being hidden from you. Look at this is a Fox News report that I'm about to play for you. A 2-minute Fox News report, and they're not exactly wild-eyed liberals. Here we go.
Turn the machine on. Denny Klein fires up his hot new invention. His machine emits a flame that feels only slightly warm to the touch. But watch what happens when he touches anything else.
Instantaneously, I can burn a hole right down through the center of that brick.
The flame instantly turns hotter than the surface of the sun. Heat so intense it takes only seconds to literally burn a hole through charcoal. 3 seconds turns a brass ball to glowing liquid metal. Tungsten lights up like a sparkler. Steel, lead, and other metals slices on contact. Yet the tip of the welder stays cool to the touch.
No other gas will do this.
Denny Klein uses an alternative fuel source once thought impossible. He says people still have trouble believing him when he reveals his liquid fuel.
Water. Take water and electricity, and we break it down through our very unique electrolysis process.
Klein has just patented his process of converting H2O to HHO. producing a gas that combines the atomic power of hydrogen with the chemical stability of water.
It turns right back to water. You can see the water running off of this.
Klein originally designed his water-burning engine for cutting metal. He thought his invention would replace volatile acetylene in welding factories. And then one day, as he drove to his laboratory in Clearwater, he thought of another way to burn his HHO gas.
On a 100-mile trip, we use about 4 ounces of water.
Klein says his prototype 1994 Ford Escort can travel exclusively on water, though he currently has it rigged to run as a water and gasoline hybrid.
Simply speaking, it can change the world by reducing our dependence on fossil fuels.
These are equivalent to our...
Pete Dominici is helping Klein take his hydrogen technology patents from a 2-room office in Clearwater to consumer markets around the world.
You know what? Microsoft came out of nowhere, came out of the garage. Why not hydrogen technologies?
The duo is already in negotiations with one U.S. automaker and the U.S. government. Their plans have grown from basic welding with water to powering the entire world from the safest and cleanest fuel on Earth. Craig Patrick, Fox News.
Members of Congress recently invited Denny Klein to Washington to demonstrate his technology. Now his company is currently developing a Hummer for the U.S. military that can run on both water and gasoline.
Get your friends who are engineers together. Show them this video. Look at this stuff. It's real. It's really real. We can really transform this planet. We may not be able to buy an ECAT, but I know people that are building their own devices based on the information that is available all over the place. You've just got to remember that we're being lied to on a massive scale, and the opportunity to change the planet is sitting right before you. Thank you to Don. Thank you to Cory. Thank you to all of the people that care about the planet, want to change things.
Thank you.
Stay tuned.
Thank you very much for watching this.
Activist Angel at YouTube. Check our shows out.
Yes, we thank you very much for watching. Oh, come on, what's the matter here? I should be on a good screen here. Anyway, welcome very much. Thank you very much. And see, I guess we're going to be out of here in just a little bit. And if you want to say another word, Kevin, that'd be fine.
Oh, okay.
Say another word.
I've spoken to people that have seen these kind of devices in action. I've spoken to somebody who's held things in their hand. I know these things are real, and just keep your imagination alive. Imagine what really can be done if we transform the planet and democratize energy.
Yes. Okay. Oops. Let's see. What happened there?
We almost had a perfect show there, Don.
Almost had a perfect show.
Oh my goodness.
Oh yeah.
That's okay. People love us anyway.
I think so. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Lots happening in the world, and we're going to be keeping up with the truth of what's happening behind the news.
Now before long, you're up to 10, and the process begins again. There is someone in the next town, got the word and is spreading it around, 'cause an idea time has come, cannot be stopped by anyone. Plant your seeds in fertile ground, there ain't nothing